So it's a really cool story. So eventually I sort of married into it. I was dating my wife in high school, which is the daughter of one of the owners, and I started working here as a summer job when I was in high school, just being, we called it a knockaround guy, just doing yard work and, shop work, just whatever they needed done, whatever that lowest level of labor needed to be done. So I was familiar with that, but I left after high school, did my tour service in the Army, worked for the different government agencies in DC for about 7 or 8 years, finished up my business degree, and my father-in-law, one of the owners, came down to visit us in Virginia, and he was kind of putting together his continuity plan, knew that I was finishing business school and that I sort of had an inkling that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and him and I, over a campfire in Virginia, came up with a plan that I was going to move my family back here.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. If you've ever taken a road trip, chances are you've passed through or maybe even stopped in a small town. Or you may even live in a small town. And by small, I mean fewer than 5,000 people. There's usually a gas station or two, a place to grab a bite to eat. And as these places provide jobs, have you ever wondered what other businesses are in the area? Today's guest is from one of those small towns in Ohio, and he happens to be the biggest job creator in the area. He owns a business that provides a service that allows us to be able to communicate. He runs Tri-County Tower, a company that works on towers, including ones that keep our cell services, radio, and television going. This business was able to grow, reinvest in itself, and offer better benefits to his employees back in 2017 after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or TCJA, was passed. But those tax cuts are set to expire at the end of the year. And so how will it affect this business and its small town if Congress doesn't act? I want to welcome to the podcast the owner of Tri-County Tower, Chris Thomas, to talk about his business and how the Tax Cut and Jobs Act helped them. Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Dave. My pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, super happy to talk to you and excited. Hey, before we get started, though, we always like to kind of learn a little more about our folks. And my understanding is that rather, as if being a business owner isn't enough, you also run a 100-acre ranch. Is that true?
That's true. We have Black Angus cattle and bison.
Nice. Where do you have them?
Located right in my hometown of Berlin Center.
That's awesome. Wow, how exciting. Well, my understanding, before you became a business owner, you served in the Army. Maybe share with us why you decided to join the Army.
I joined the Army for a number of reasons, not limited to I wasn't great in high school, and college probably wasn't in my future. I knew I needed direction. I knew that I kind of was searching for maybe a greater purpose. I come from a long line of veterans. My father was a sailor, and my grandfather was a sailor, a lot of my family. So it kind of in my blood going all the way back. And not to mention, I graduated high school in 2003, shortly thereafter, 9/11. And so I think like many young men at the time, I kind of felt that patriotic pull to get in there and kind of do my part. So for all those reasons.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making that decision and that service. We talked to so many folks, of like your same age, we'll ask them, why did you decide to, join the military? And a lot of times it is, that experience of, watching the towers go down and how it felt then. And, but it really sets people often on a really good path. And we find that they, start businesses or succeed in other ways because of what they learned in the military. So what skills did you learn in the Army, and I believe in the intelligence field, that helped you now as a business owner?
Dave, that's a great question. And something that gets often overlooked is, why our personal why we join is one thing, but being able to utilize the modern military is another thing that I really impart onto young kids that I mentor. I'm a high school football coach, a few other things. So like you said, I scored pretty well on the ASVAB test, my placement test in the military, and I was able to, secure my job as an intelligence analyst in the Army, which offers a lot of career benefits, a lot of skill development as far as all the training, and a lot of it even went towards college credits. It had a great kind of capacity for a career after the military, which I took. I took advantage of, and I worked in DC for some of those agencies, helping continue that fight after I left the military. But the other big one, just the big one that goes all the way back, is the GI Bill. And I was fortunate enough, based on when I served and where I served, that I was able to qualify for the post 9/11 GI Bill, which makes it nice for I had a wife and young children. I was able to go back to school in a flexible way, and they help cover some of the costs. They give you some benefits along the way for cost of living or housing, some things like that, and they pay for all your school. So I was able to finish my bachelor's degree after my tour of service in business, and then roll that in. The thing about the military that helps us is starting with the discipline, right? I run a business now. I'm veteran friendly. I try to hire veterans. At a minimum, I know what they've been doing for the last 4 years, right? I know that they get out of bed at 6 a.m. and they didn't, punch their boss, and that they're able to, not get caught up in some of those seedier things in life. There's just a kind of a confidence level in the things that they are able to bring to the table as far as stability and production. Now, that's not exclusive to every military member, and certainly no knock on folks that didn't have the opportunity to serve. But there's kind of like I call it kind of like a minimum floor. There's a minimum set of qualifications that I know these men and women are coming with. So that's always a big part. And I took some of that with me, the discipline that it takes to operate in and lead a productive team. And some of the things I learned specifically in intelligence field, make you pragmatic, make you a critical thinker, and make you, kind of flexible to operate in different types of environments with different teams. And all of those things have translated very well into running a small business here.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, I love the idea of almost using the military as your initial screener for talent, because you just know that there's a basic floor of competence, discipline. I think that makes a ton of sense. So you're the owner of Tri-County Tower. So what do you guys do, and where exactly are you located?
So we're located in Northeast Ohio, just outside of the city of Youngstown. Pretty good sized city right here.
Yeah.
Kind of what we call home. Geographically, for folks that don't know, I always say we are directly between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So we're right up here. We're on the I-80 Turnpike corridor. So big hub for manufacturing, for steel, for a lot of things, but we're on a major transportation hub here. So it's a pretty busy spot, not far from the Great Lakes region. We're 8 hours from New York, 8 hours from Chicago. So we're kind of right in the middle here. Tri-County Tower is a full service tower construction and maintenance firm. We were founded in 1982 by two men in a barn. I wrote about it in college for my senior thesis. It's the true American dream. Two guys that worked at the local radio station as maintenance men. They taught themselves the industry, which, is kind of that pick yourself up by your bootstraps type of, old school American, ingenuity. And they built it into what it is today. Just again, I'll lean on the pragmatism. They had to overcome so much. They didn't go to school for this. They basically taught themselves, and they figured it out as they went, never taking no for an answer, always willing to outwork the competition. And one of the biggest things I've taken from them too, that's Doug Henry and Frank Kovacs were the founders, is being fair across the board, right? Is a kind of a moral compass that try to do the right thing by your employees, by your clients, by everybody involved. And that has been kind of a recipe for success for us around here. But the short answer to your question is, yeah, we build and maintain all sorts of towers. Cellular is obviously the hot button item, but a lot of what we do is broadcast, radio, things like that. Public utilities have their own communication systems that we build and maintain, and public safety. And then we've the last 4 or 5 years, we've really started dabbling more in state and federal government work too, and that's been very good for us.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you said about kind of treating people the right way. I really think, we have a principle in our company called mutual benefit. And to me, it's the most basic thing, but I can't believe how many people get it wrong in business, which is if you treat your customers well and you treat your employees well, they're going to reciprocate, and you just get this, cycle of goodness, and it's more productive. People want to keep doing business together. It just makes all the sense in the world. So
Yeah, you nailed it. And you know what else I found? It allows me to maybe rest my head on my pillow at night a little easier. I go home, I look at my children, I look at the young men and women that I coach and mentor, and it makes it a little easier for me to live with myself, knowing that I at least tried to do the right thing. That's a big part of it.
Yeah, that's great. So how did you come to run the company?
Oh, so it's a really cool story. So eventually I sort of married into it.
Mm-hmm.
I was dating my wife in high school, which is the daughter of one of the owners. And I started working here as a summer job when I was in high school, just being, we called it a knockaround guy, just doing yard work and, shop work, just whatever they needed done, whatever that lowest level of labor needed to be done. So I was familiar with that, but I left after high school, did my tour service in the Army, worked for the different government agencies in DC for about 7 or 8 years, finished up my business degree. And my father-in-law, one of the owners, came down to visit us in Virginia, and he was kind of putting together his continuity plan, knew that I was finishing business school and that I sort of had an inkling that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And him and I, over a campfire in Virginia, came up with a plan that I was going to move my family back here, and we were going to take a shot at, kind of taking over the company eventually. So we did back in 2015. My wife and I sold our house in Charlottesville, Virginia. We moved back here to Northeast Ohio, and I started working for the company as a project manager and learning the business. He had an amazing staff that was able to teach me everything I needed to know. And then just through my own experiences, I worked here for about 3 years before I was comfortable enough that I understood enough that I made an offer to purchase the company from him and his partner. I have a great local team of lenders and accountants and lawyers that helped me put together a good deal that was good, mutually beneficial. I like that. It was good for both of us, and I bought the company, and the rest is history. They've both previous owners are obviously very close, and they've been amazing at being mentors and helping me with the transition. And hopefully, they're both kind of living. One of them is retired, one of them is still working, but they're still available. If I called them right now, they would answer. So it was a beautiful transition. And as far as small business goes, it's probably one of the best or the best transition I've ever seen.
That's fabulous. I'm so happy to hear that. It is funny, I imagine all of us have these moments in life when you look back, maybe you didn't even notice how consequential they were. Like you're sitting around a fire in Charlottesville and decide, okay, this is going to be my future. That's pretty cool.
And I'll tell you, if you know anybody in business, one of the things that separates entrepreneurs maybe from folks that are not is you can insert whatever adjective you want, but it's courage or silliness or willingness to take risks. And I had a good job.
Yeah.
My wife we were comfortable, and we lived in a great neighborhood, and my kids went to a good school. And there were a lot of people that said, why the heck would you leave that for this uncertainty that is private business? And there's an element of, I don't think you ever go wrong when you gamble on yourself. And that's sort of where what we leaned into and what ended up happening there.
Well, so tell me a little bit about how you invest in your workers. Like, what are some of the ways that you do that?
So it starts with making sure that we're as aggressive as we can be with the daily needs, right? Total compensation package, that's salary, benefits, 401k, PTO. Ultimately, we all go to work. We want purpose in those things, but you have to meet the basic needs. So I try to be as competitive as we can, financially as responsible as we can. Try to let them earn as good as they can, be aggressive with those things. Because that's what kind of gets them in the door, right? Other things can help keep them, recruiting versus retention. So it starts there. Is right around the same time as the tax cut, the act came in back in, was that 2017? Yeah. We were very aggressive, maybe one of the moves I'm most proud of is we did an across the board raise of about 40% on average with every employee to kind of what I call it modernizing. And that was because we had the flexibility. That would have been in 2018. I did that immediately following the Tax Cuts Act, because we had a little bit more financial freedom to do so. Year to year, it's not like it inserted, $1 million into my account that I could just blow. But when you're forecasting these things as a business owner, you're doing your quarterly and annually projections, knowing that we were going to have a tax-friendly environment moving forward allows me to be a little bit more aggressive coming off those purse strings and giving a little bit more to my employees. We also made a big investment in the infrastructure here. We built a new 100-foot long building. We bought new equipment. I bought a new excavator. I bought a new skid steer. We've bought 4 new trucks. We've doubled down on our professional development training, both on the administrative side and the technical side. So all those things have allowed me to reinvest in my workforce and get what I think is kind of one of the leading, teams in the area, certainly in my market. And we're really pushing to help, improve our retention and our recruiting efforts moving forward.
Wow. So there's a direct line between the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act passing and you being able to recognize and then eventually, reinvest in your people with, higher compensation and then buy equipment, build a building. I mean, you put that right back in the business to make it more and more profitable and then hopefully even allow you to keep, rewarding your people. Seems like a pretty direct benefit of good policy.
It is, David. And I think if you talk to any small business owner, maybe the bigger businesses are a little more insulated or can, maybe project out a little further. But for folks like me, my day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month operating kind of outlook changed. It was more optimistic. I was much more comfortable than directly spending that cash. A lot easier for me to give everybody raises and buy a new truck if I know that operating environment from a tax standpoint is going to be more friendly to us. Those things, the smaller the business, especially, and I'm not sure if I'm unique here in the Northeast, kind of in the Rust Belt, as we call it, but it gave me better outlook I know the clients that I work for are going to have a better outlook from a tax standpoint. So what it does is sort of, it shows stability in the whole market, and that allows all of us to operate a little bit more comfortably.
It seems one of the things I think that a lot of lawmakers don't totally internalize is something that you talked about is it's not just about like you got the money and you're like, oh, I'm going to go buy something. It's that you are looking ahead and like figuring out what the landscape's going to look like and how that will determine what you can invest in and where you can't. It's about that look ahead and then having some certainty, which is, I think, one of the real problems right now with, the debate over the Tax Cut and Jobs Act and whether they'll expire or not is, we need to give business owners and folks who are creating jobs that kind of certainty so that they can make those decisions like you did when it was passed.
Yeah. And David, just the other shoe dropping like it would is I try to be thoughtful and kind of use foresight to see some of these things. If we lose those tax advantages, that's going to have to sort of change the way that we forecast some of those things. And I'm going to do everything I can, obviously, right, to remain competitive and aggressive with investing in my workforce and my business infrastructure. But there will be financial limitations that weren't there before. And I know, again, much like it affected not just me, but my whole sort of supply chain and my client base, those things will affect all them too. So those have long-term direct negative ramifications for every small business like me in every place like this in America.
So if you were talking to a member of Congress, like what would you tell them from your experiences about the Tax Cut and Jobs Act and whether or not to reauthorize it?
I would get right up on my high horse and say, it's companies like mine, and I'm certainly not special. I have an amazing team, but what I've found in the 39 years I've been alive is that companies like us are the backbone. We're the real backbone, right? This is, the mom and pops of the world. This is how business is done. And that those tax cuts for folks like us, directly lead to us being more successful. Or on the other hand, can be very, very limiting, and that, providing a tax environment that allows us to be successful and reinvest in our businesses. Most folks like me are not taking, the profit at the end of the year and buying our second home in Aspen or our second private jet, right?
Right.
I'm trying to get, I'm hiring a couple new people. I'm buying a new truck. I'm buying a new piece of equipment. I'm putting on a better Christmas party. That's where the money's going. So I would encourage them to be very thoughtful about the direct impact they can have on the success of middle America, which works its way all the way from top to bottom, and that their actions now can really, really have a positive impact on the overall economy, especially on, production and service on my side.
Yeah, I think that's a strong, really important message. I mean, businesses like yours are the backbone of the economy in America. And, I love that you're actually in Northeast Ohio, because it's kind of exactly the type of business I think would be in Northeast Ohio. So much good stuff's come out of there and in that whole region. You actually even do more, though, than even just providing jobs and, and providing a great service. Talk to me a little bit about the folks with disabilities and how you've been involved with job placement with them. And why is it important to you?
Yeah. Thanks, David. That's a great one and a big part of our life. So I mentioned earlier, we have children, my wife and I. We have 4 children. 3 of our children are on the autism spectrum, and they go to a special school right here in Youngstown called Potential Development. It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. But that obviously has become a huge part of our life. We call it our new normal. And like anybody, all disabilities are limiting this, to some degree. Our focus is now helping our children live a happy, productive life. But one of the things that us and a number of like-minded people have started to approach is, especially life after 18 with folks with disabilities that maybe can't support themselves. So a couple years ago, my wife and I, along with my sister-in-law, launched a nonprofit right before COVID. We were actually pretty successful doing some fundraisers and putting on some things. COVID shut everything down, so we kind of stepped away from that. But my wife is on the board of a local nonprofit that helps supply housing needs and career, like kind of workforce needs for folks with autism specifically. That's kind of our focus. So a big part of our life is going to be, number one, just raising our children and giving them the best life that they can. But we're also very active in fundraising and providing support for housing needs and job placement for folks with autism. It's a big deal because now we've come a long way. Don't get me wrong. The support that we get, the communities that we have are amazing. And some of these people are absolutely doing the Lord's work. But after 18, there's still a pretty big gap.
Yeah.
We've been lucky enough to meet some people that we've rubbed elbows with that share the same passion. So as our kids grow older and as we progress in our careers and our life, it's going to become a bigger and bigger piece of that is finding out that piece after 18.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, especially with, the population growing and growing, solving for that's just crucial. And I'm so excited you guys are really involved in that.
And if I may, I don't mean to jump in here, but the big piece, if I spoke to some of your colleagues about, is we as a society kind of have to, I love that term, the new normal. We have to identify our new normal. Some of these folks aren't going to be able to do everything, right? They're not going to be able to, maybe climb towers, but maybe I can find something in my business that they can do. And that's sort of what my aim over the short and long term is going to be, reaching out to ask people to open up their hearts and open up maybe their businesses or their opportunities that they know. Let's find that niche, right? These people are not helpless and they're not, they're very productive in certain things. And if we can find those things, I think that we can help with the workforce problem. I think that we can help these folks that need this, develop an income and develop a skill set. Makes our society from the inside out, sort of from the bottom up. It makes us all stronger.
Absolutely. Really also shows how a role like the good that business can play in society. You're
nailed it,
doing
David.
something that's not just, we want, nonprofits and churches and others to do altruistic good things, but business can play such an important role in society beyond just making profit. So I applaud you for that. Hey, so since your business was started by your father-in-law, do you have any plans that one day, when your kids takes over the business?
Oh, that's the dream, my friend. That is the dream. We have a big family. We're very family-centric people, so it's my wife and our four. But what's funny about where we live out in Berlin Center, there's 4 or 5 of us family members that live all on the same small street, and we're all pretty close to each other. Our
Awesome.
friends affectionately call it the commune. I would love... I think of it in terms of kind of holistically as a family. I would love my kids, my nieces and nephews, their cousins. I would love everyone to kind of be involved in the greater kind of enterprise, that being Tri-County, that being the ranch. I would absolutely love for all of them to have some role here. It's been great. What Doug and Frank built, I'm certainly standing on the shoulders of those giants, and I would love to pave the way and make a stable, good, productive life for our family moving forward. That is absolutely the dream. So I'm hoping, man. I'm really hoping.
I love that approach to life. I think sometimes underappreciated. I have a lot of kids. I have 11 kids. And I've lived next door. Yeah, I've lived next door to my in-laws for the entirety of having kids and being married. And everyone's always like, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "It's wonderful. I love it." My parents live in the same county. Yeah, having a lot of family around. They're a big family too, and it's just rewarding. And also, there's times where life's hard, and having people around you who really love you does make a big difference.
Maybe I learned in the military or just as I grew up, but my oldest son, he'll be 15 next month. I tell him all the time, there's a lot of people outside of these walls that do not care if we fail or succeed. The people inside, that being family, they typically are the ones that have your back, even when you're down. And so I really, really push that relationship hard.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, I so enjoyed talking. I really applaud what you're doing with your business. I mean, it just seems fabulous, and what you're doing, to benefit your community and people. I hope I wish you the best success, and I also really appreciate a really cogent, important message for our lawmakers about how the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act really made a difference and why it needs to continue.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys having me. I love everything you and your organization stand for and that you're doing. And it is, it's a heck of a message that we need to send. Folks like me are doing stuff like this. We're on the ground level with all those things we discussed. Empowering us is a good move. It's a good move. So I would, certainly encourage, all the lawmakers to consider extending these, to absolutely do it.
Amen. All right. Well, God bless. Hey, folks, if you enjoyed this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Always remember, liberty and freedom are easily taken for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go out there and defend freedom and liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.